What's up, bitches?
Let's talk about crime.
What's up, bitches?
Hello.
We are here. We are ready. We're going to be talking about some shit today that has to do with true crime, as we always do. However, I am going to point out something really quickly. I just saw this. It came across my Facebook feed or something. So you know how that Nancy Guthrie, I think is her last name, how she's been missing? So apparently TMZ and another news outlet source just received a letter stating that they know where
I thought they found her body.
No. Stating that they know where she is and stating that that's where it's at. This happened literally just like a day ago.
I swear to God, I was seeing articles that said they found her body.
No, they were searching.
Because they found bones by her house.
Yeah, but
of human remains, I thought.
No, that's called bullshit is what that's called. As a matter of fact, her daughter has come out and said basically that she feels like it's all her fault. And so which is really sad, but it's because, she is, like I said in the beginning, she was one of the first people that had interviewed Epstein victims. And she's a news reporter who has been involved in things like that. And so I think she genuinely believes that this has to do with that. So more to come on that, apparently, which will lead us into kind of sort of what we're talking about today. So this week we are actually talking about a girl named Skylar Neese. This happened in Star City, West Virginia, and Skylar Neese goes missing on July 6th, 2012. Very new.
Thank God.
Very new. I'm gonna pause really quickly and I am gonna say that when I started researching it, I'm not gonna lie, this was a hard one. And this might be a hard one for you to listen to. I'm just giving you a fair warning. I'm talking to Sierra. It's going to be hard for everybody to listen to. So I want to make that known. But it was hard for me to research. But it was really hard for me to, I don't know. I struggled with this one a lot. So I'm just giving you fair warning. This isn't like a trigger warning. I'm just letting you know. It was hard. Anyways, so Skylar Neese's body is found in January of 2013. To remind you, she went missing July 6, 2012. And her body was found in Pennsylvania, and she is from West Virginia. So her body crossed state lines. So a little background. Skylar Neese was born February 10th, 1996 to her parents, Dave and Mary Neese. Now, while she was in high school, Skylar was an honor roll student at University High School. She wanted to become a criminal defense attorney. She also would sometimes work in the evenings part-time at Wendy's. She was a typical teenager with typical teenage life things going on. She spent a lot of her free time with her friends. She had a very close-knit circle of friends. Two of her closest friends were Sheila, Eddy, and Rachel Shoaf. Now, the three girls were often seen together around town. They would hang out at school together. They pretty much did everything together. And it was reported that Skylar actually seemed to be the closest to Sheila over Rachel. However, as time goes on, there seems to be a little bit of tension between the group of friends. As, in my opinion, I view it as typical growing pains of friendships. When you're in middle school and high school, that happens.
Oh, do I know that?
This is why this might be hard for you to listen to. So I'm just going to throw it out there really quick. This reminded me a lot of Sierra and her high school and her middle school years. Not her fourth grade year where she was bullied and we moved schools because of it. So it did remind me a lot of that because when Sierra was in high school, she had a very small group of friends as well. And they were friends with her in middle school and then moved to high school with her. And then in high school, they had very rough times. And it was like at any point in Sierra's life, she had a very close circle of friends. It was these two specific girls and Sierra. And then later towards her senior year, it was two other girls and Sierra. But the two other girls, so this reminds me more of like what your life was like middle school to junior year. Okay. And again, that's why I said them having their issues. Like, I feel like there's just growing pains especially when it comes to high school and middle school. Because middle school, you're trying to find yourself. High school, you get into high school and part of your friendships start to kind of fade. People get boyfriends. Sierra was an athlete, so she did a shit ton of softball. So her life was extremely busy. She spent most weekends practicing or at softball tournaments. So she did not have your typical high school experience. So her friends didn't understand the fact that she was gone all the time. Now, Sheila Eddy, she was born September 28th, 1996 in Blackwell, West Virginia. Now, her parents were Greg Eddy and Tara Clendon. Now, her parents did get divorced in the year 2000. And Sheila and Skylar were friends since they were 8 years old. So they were friends for a very long time. Now, Rachel Shoaf was born June 10th, 1996, and she was raised in Morgantown, West Virginia. Her parents were Rusty and Patricia Shoaf. Now, she attended a private school until it was time for her to go to high school, which is then when she goes to the same high school as Sheila and Skylar. And she meets them, becomes friends with them, and the three of them just kind of hang. Now, on July 5th, 2012, Skylar comes home after working a shift at Wendy's. She tells her parents that she's tired, she's ready to go to bed, and she heads to her room around 10 p.m. Everything seems normal, not too crazy. It's just like normal life. Now, the next morning, her parents let her sleep in because I believe it was a weekend. So her parents let her sleep in. Both of them left to go to work. They didn't even bother to check on her. It's just a usual thing. I did that and do that. Like if somebody has the day off of work and they've been working all day and they want to sleep, I'm going to let them sleep. They went on about their day. Now, Skylar's dad comes home for lunch from his work. He comes home for a lunch break. And what it ends up being is he's coming home because he has the car. He's going to have Skylar bring him back to his work, and she's then going to have the work to go to her job later at 2:00 in the afternoon or 4:00, whatever, for her shift later on. So he gets home, calls out to her. He's like, come on, Skylar, like, I got to get back to work. And he hears no response from her. So he kind of calls her again, making his lunch, whatever. Nothing. He doesn't hear from her or anything. So he's going to go up to her room and just be like, is she awake? Does she not hear him? Whatever. So he goes up to her room. And as he walks into her room, he finds out that her room is completely empty. Her bed has not been slept in. Her window is open and there is a stool outside of her window. And so he calls his wife and he's basically like, Skylar's not here. She did not sleep here last night. I think she snuck out. And by the way, Skylar is 16 years old. These are a group of girls that are 16, which I did not sneak out as a child ever, but I definitely know a lot of people who did. I just did the typical like, hey mom, I'm staying at my friend's house. And then I was actually at a party all night, right? Like I didn't sneak out like that. And Sierra couldn't sneak out because her room was upstairs.
Not only it's upstairs across from my parents.
Yeah, I could have heard.
But we also had a Ring camera.
Fair.
So I couldn't do that.
Nope. And I'm a light sleeper, so I hear these bitches walk down the hall. And
also, I wanted to and did go to college for softball. Yeah. So
she didn't have time to be sneaking out.
Yeah, I was out with my friends till like 1 a.m, going to Sonic.
Well, and to be fair, she didn't need to sneak out because that's exactly right. I would have never told her she had to be home.
It was to the point where my parents, when I would call them and say, hey, by the way, we're going to be out till like 1, we're at Big Al's or, we're at Sonic, because that was like
that place.
Well, because I wasn't a huge partier. Like especially when I was, underage in college, different, but like in high school, no, because I was trying to get to college. Right. But yeah, I remember my parents telling me like I'd be home at like 11 and they're like, go fucking be a teenager.
We did.
Like, get the fuck out of here.
My husband and I both have said it multiple times, like, what the fuck? Like
me and my brother were
myself and my husband both did really not so good things when we were growing up. We did lots of partying, lots of drinking, drugs, the huge for all the 90s kids. And our kids did nothing. But part of it was because I think we told them, like, listen, like, we know what you're going to do, so don't fucking lie. But again, we kept them busy with sports to where they didn't have time.
And we got threatened with having to take a shot of Everclear if we came home drunk.
True story. Not even a lie. Anyway, so her parents are basically like not totally concerned about it because now they're just thinking, okay, she probably snuck out, went with her friends and just stayed the night at their house, like whatever. But they are obviously a little worried. So they do call they call some of her friends, specifically Sheila. And they're like, hey, have you seen Skylar? Because, we can't find her. And Sheila's like, no, like I haven't seen her since yesterday, like at school, like I haven't seen her. However, by 4:30, she has now not shown up to her shift at work. She has not come home. They cannot find anybody who knows where she is. So they start to really get concerned. One of the big things that worries them specifically is that it is completely out of Skylar's character to no call, no show to work. So now they're thinking something's not right. Something must have happened because she would never just not show up to work. So her parents do end up calling the police because they're like, something's very wrong. They call the police department. They report her missing. So the police show up to their house. They begin to interview the parents. And the parents are really stressing to them that Skylar would not have run away. Because, of course, that's always the first thing. Your 16-year-old kid, they must be a runaway. They're telling her, like, no, listen, she's not a runaway. She is a straight A student. She literally has a job. She is happy. Like, her life is fine. And they point out also, if she was going to run away, then why is her cell phone charger still here? Why is all of her contact lenses and all of her contact stuff here? Why is all of her money here? And more importantly, why did she leave a stool outside of her window? Because she needed the stool to get back in, which showed that she was going to come back. Because if she was running away, she would have tossed the stool in the window. Or, I don't know, not even used a stool because the stool was used to get back in the window. So they bring all these things up. And of course, they're telling them like, okay, well, we got to wait 48 hours to do any sort of Amber Alert or anything. We do think she's most likely a runaway. Now, later that same evening, after all this stuff has been going on, Sheila actually ends up calling Skylar's parents and she tells them, okay, I'm going to tell you what happened. She said, Rachel and I picked Skylar up at your house last night. We drove around. We smoked some pot, just kind of hung out for like an hour. And then I dropped her back off at your house. But the thing is, I dropped her off down the street at the corner. She tells this to Skylar's parents. The police talk to her. She tells the police. And they are doing all these different investigations because they can't figure it out. Now, during this investigation, there are some reported sightings of Skylar too. So supposedly there was a sighting of her in North Carolina, and the person reported seeing somebody who looked like her with two other girls, and one of the girls happened to have red hair that she was with, which is crazy because one of the girls, Rachel, has red hair. And so people are like, this is strange. So they start looking into these different sightings, and none of them lead to anything like that. And all of them, it's almost like people saw her missing because it became very, very popular news that she was missing. It's almost like people saw her missing and they like looked her up on like socials and then picked out her friends and were like, oh, I saw these girls. It was like lies, right? So as the investigation goes on, the police are able to now do things like review security footage from Skylar's apartment complex. And it actually shows that they see Skylar leave her apartment complex and get into a vehicle at 12:30 a.m. on that night. Now, police are also able to create a timeline of when Skylar was supposedly hanging out with Sheila and Rachel because they talked to Sheila and Rachel, and they both tell them like, no, we literally picked her up. We drove around, smoked pot, dropped her off like an hour later, and went home. So that's their story. However, as they're talking to the two girls, they have some conflicting reports. Specifically, they were asking both the girls at different times, okay, so after you guys drove around for a little bit, smoked pot, how'd you get home? And so, for instance, one girl would say, well, we came to this intersection, I took a left, then I could take here, took a right. The other girl would say, we came to this intersection, took a right, then we took another right. They had completely different directions of getting back to Skylar's house, which already is like, well, how? And the police said, now, normally you could be like, oh, maybe they were just confused. But they said the way that they both were describing was literally main streets. So there would be no reason why you would be getting confused on which way you were turning and going back to your friend's house. They also find it suspicious that when they talk to the two girls, their stories are fucking identical. And I mean like identical to a T. Nothing is different in their stories, which is never going to be the case because you are two completely different people who have two completely different experiences. So you're not going to say the exact same thing. And they said you could tell by their stories that it was literally rehearsed. Like somebody sat them down, or they sat down together and said, okay, we're going to say that we did this, then we did this, then we did this. You're not going to say it exactly like that. And because they even use like the same terms, right? So the FBI gets involved. West Virginia State Police gets involved, and they start to look around this investigation in more detail. They also begin to interview friends of Skylar's at school, and they find that there have been some arguments between the girls. This is where they start to find out that there were some cracks there. They also find out that it seemed like Sheila and Rachel were becoming closer, and they were kind of leaving Skylar out of a lot of situations, and that would make Skylar mad or get her feelings hurt. So they do all this in September of 2012. Mind you, she's still missing as of July. They still do not know where she is. Now, police do also obtain phone records from both Rachel and Sheila, and they discover that both of their phones had been in Blacksville, West Virginia at approximately 4 a.m. on the night that Skylar went missing. However, the girls had claimed that they were back at home sleeping by like midnight, which also the video shows her getting into the car, which they later are able to identify is Sheila's car at 12:30 a.m., but she said that they were already home. So already the timelines are off. They also find surveillance footage because they start looking at, okay, now that we know that they're here, we can trace their phones being tracked to different places. They start looking at local businesses, traffic cameras, surveillance cameras, and they do find a surveillance camera footage of Sheila's car passing by a gas station after midnight on what looked like on their way to Blacksville. So they're starting to create their own timeline, which completely negates the two girls' timeline. This footage also confirms that this is the same car that Skylar had gotten into earlier. So now they are able to definitively say that car that she got into at 12:30 was 100% Sheila's car. And Sheila did drive past this gas station after that. And she was headed in the direction of Blacksville. And at 4 a.m., their phones were pinging in Blacksville. Now, police decide we're not getting much from these girls because they keep telling us the same story over and over. They keep saying that, yes, they were with her, but no, nothing. They dropped her off on the corner. They don't know what happened. So they decide, well, let's try lie detector tests. Like, not that they're admissible in court, but sometimes a lie detector test can make people almost stop the test and tell you the truth because they're afraid, right? Well, Sheila fails her lie detector test completely. Just completely fails it. Now, from what I can tell, Rachel doesn't even take one. She doesn't even take one because the days leading up to her getting ready to take her lie detector test, she has multiple nervous breakdowns. And this is about 6 months later after after Skylar's reported missing that her mother calls 911 and Rachel can be heard screaming in the background of this 911 call. And she is then taken and committed to a psychiatric hospital where she had a nervous breakdown. And she is discharged 5 days later, but that was right before she was supposed to do her lie detector test. The day that she is released from the psychiatric facility, which was January 3rd, 2013, she asks to be taken to a lawyer's office right after she's released. She then goes to this lawyer and she then confesses to the lawyer that her and Sheila had stabbed and killed Skylar. So she tells this to a lawyer who then also brings the police in. She then tells the police that the friends were having problems because they asked her, like, why would you kill her? And she's like, well, we were having problems for some time. And she said that Sheila had suggested that they get rid of her because they just don't like her anymore. And they didn't want to be friends with her. So Rachel says that she went along with the plan because she was afraid because her and Sheila had started a sexual relationship. And she was afraid that Sheila was going to tell everybody about it. So she went along with the plan. Basically, what she tells them is that this shit was premeditated. She talks about how the girls plotted and planned to pick up Skylar. They brought knives, plastic bags, and other supplies from their home. She said that they lured Skylar out of her home by telling her, like, hey, let's go out, let's smoke some pot, let's hang out. They drove to Wayne Township, Pennsylvania. They walked with her into a wooded area. So they pulled into this area. She got out of the car, started walking in front of them, and then they jumped her from behind and they stabbed her. She says that Skylar fought back for her fucking life. She also says that the only thing Skylar said was why? Like, why? She then said that this resulted in, because Skylar was fighting them, she said that it resulted in her, Rachel, getting hurt in her ankle. So she stopped. She said, I got hurt, so I stopped. And she said, but Sheila continued. And she said that Sheila continued to basically stab her and attack her until she made no more sounds, until Skylar could not make any more sounds. Now, after she died, Sheila and Rachel tried to bury her body. However, they were unable to dig through the ground because it was too hard. And I want to say, I don't think it was like frozen. I think it was just the ground. They didn't bring the proper shit to basically dig up an area to put her body. So instead, they drag her body over to a deeper wooded area, and they cover her with branches and debris. Now, after Rachel confesses to the police, she agrees to the police that she will lead them to her body. So her body is found on January 16th, 2013. They also had Rachel, she agreed to a wiretap to sit down and talk to Sheila to try to get Sheila to confess. It did not work. Sheila never once said on tape. She never said once on tape or on the wiretap that she had done anything. So that did not work. However, the police were able to discover blood in Sheila's car, and it ends up matching Skylar's DNA, which I still don't know how the blood got in there. So I don't know if they killed her and then put her in the car and then drove her somewhere, or if the blood is from the knives or something. I'm not really sure because I don't know how the blood got in the car. Now, both girls are arrested for the murder of Skylar. And on May 1st of 2013, Rachel Shoaf pleads guilty to second-degree murder. Now, during court, it was shown to the people that that students had reportedly heard the two girls plotting to murder Skylar, and not one fucking person reported it. So people literally heard them talking about killing Skylar in class, and nobody thought that they should go tell a teacher, an adult, or anybody. Rachel does get a plea deal for cooperating, for being the one who told, and all that stuff. So the plea deal actually recommended that she gets a 20-year sentence. She does also apologize to the family in court. On February 26th, 2014, she's actually sentenced to 30 years in prison with eligibility for parole in 10 years. Now, on September 4th of 2013, it is announced that Sheila is going to be tried as an adult. She is indicted by a grand jury on 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder. And of course, she pleads not guilty. However, through all the court shit, she does end up pleading guilty. But she only pleads guilty to first-degree murder. So whatever the plea deal, however they worked that out with her, is they basically took away everything but first-degree murder. Now, she is given a life sentence with what they call mercy. So what this means is she's got a life sentence, but because of her age, because again, remember, she was 16 years old, but they tried her as an adult. So because she was only 16, she got life sentence with mercy, which means she is eligible for parole in 15 years. It doesn't mean she'll get it. It means she serves time until they feel that she should be let out, if ever. But a lot of people in this first degree, normally when you get first degree murder, you get life with no parole, right? She got mercy. Sheila was originally held for the first part of her sentencing in a juvenile facility, even though she was found guilty as an adult, which, I mean, I'm not going to lie.
I agree with that.
I do too. She was 16.
Ages.
Yeah. I'm not saying that what Sheila did was wrong or right, but I mean, at the same time, she was a 16-year-old kid. And if you throw her in prison with people who are, I mean, juvenile facilities can hold people from all the way up until they're 22. So if you are somebody who gets juvie, you can be in juvie till 22 years old. People who go to prison can be any age, 16 to whoever knows. But most people in prison are in their 20s. And if you throw a 16-year-old person, even though she's a killer, in my honest opinion, you put her in a prison with other women who might potentially be killers. What do you think that's going to do? Probably make her worse. So anyway, so she did serve the first part of her sentence in the juvenile facility. But as of now, as of February of 2026, so as of just recently, both girls are still being held in prison. And both of them are actually housed at Lakin Correctional Center, which drives me nuts because they put them together. I'm not saying they're together. I don't know if they're in the same cell block. I don't know, but why are they in the same prison? You cannot tell me that neither one of those girls could have been sent to a different prison. I do not think people who commit a crime together should be allowed to be in prison together. I
actually think they should be completely across the state.
I do too. I've never thought that it was okay for people to be in a facility with people they committed a crime with. Just like, if anybody listens to Fatal Blend, I just talked about this on last week's episode. We talked about Ted Kaczynski, who was the Unabomber, and he was housed in the same facility as Timothy McVeigh, who is somebody who did the Oklahoma City bombings. And he was housed with another person who bombed the World Trade Centers in 1993. And guess who he fucking hung out with? The three of them got to hang out together, play cards and shit in this prison until Timothy McVeigh was put to death. I don't know why you're letting bombers hang out with each other. And by the way, they were in a Supermax prison. So they shouldn't even be around each other. Because we saw it with Kohberger. They are literally locked 23 hours out of 24 hours a day in their cells. They get 1 hour, but they're like chained to desks and they're not really allowed to hang out with each other. So how the fuck you let three bombers hang out together? I don't know. But I feel the same way about this because these two girls committed a crime together, killed a girl together, and now they get to be around each other in this prison. And if I'm being very honest, or let's talk about the fact that maybe Sheila, I don't know, but does Sheila hold a grudge against Rachel for telling? Now you've got an even other situation where there's now Rachel could be in danger because if Sheila makes enough friends, who's not going to say they're not going to come after Rachel for snitching? You know? So I just don't think they should all be together. But regardless, they're both still there. Now, Rachel has been able to parole. She has been able to apply for parole. She applied for parole in 2023 and was denied. She applied in 2024 and was denied. She is eligible for parole again in June 2026. Now, when she was at her parole hearing, the family of Skylar was allowed to, they were supposed to have a video, they were supposed to be able to be on video. And for some reason, the video feed didn't work, which is very disappointing for her family. But they were able to hear what was going on. And basically, to that day, when she was in this parole hearing, they've been asking these girls why. They've been asking, why did you kill her? And every time it was the same thing. We just didn't like her anymore. We just didn't want her to be your friends, which everybody knows that's bullshit because you don't kill somebody when you don't want to be their friend. Rachel actually did admit that the reason, at least in her parole hearing now, she's saying that the reason they killed her was because her and Sheila were in a sexual relationship and they thought they basically didn't want Skylar to find out about it. And they thought that she might have found out about it. So they were killing her for that, which again is not a reason to kill anybody, which is also why I don't think she's actually been paroled, because I don't think, even though she's apologized to the family, it doesn't really sound like there's a lot of, it doesn't sound, I don't know if it's not remorse or if they're looking for more accountability from her. I'm not really sure what they're looking for Rachel, but they have so far denied her eligibility. Now, Sheila, on the other hand, will be eligible for her first parole hearing in 2028. And because Sheila is the one who's held at a higher sentence, I don't know. I mean, it would not shock me if they also denied her parole. Now, Skylar's parents have both said that we do not want either one of them paroled. And her father specifically said that Sheila has zero remorse. Sheila has never apologized. Never. Not in court, not through writings, not through her family. She has never once apologized for killing Skylar. So it almost sounds like she is almost not taking as much accountability or something. I'm not really sure. You know how we like to do things here. If we can, we like to leave it on a positive note when something so terrible happens, right? So to leave things on a little bit of a positive note as we can. So again, like I said, during the first 48 hours on an Amber Alert, you could not issue an Amber Alert for Skylar because her disappearance had not met 4 criteria that is needed to trigger an Amber Alert. Those 4 things are: you need to believe that they were abducted, they need to be under 18, they need to be in danger or have a serious injury believed to have, and there needs to be sufficient information that would make an Amber Alert helpful. So I'm thinking the 4 criteria, the thing that she didn't meet was, 1, she was under 18, so that she did meet. Maybe in danger or serious injury. I'm sure her parents believe so since she did not show up to work. Sufficient information that would make an Amber Alert helpful were the fact that she disappeared. So I'm assuming the only thing that made it to where they wouldn't issue an Amber Alert was because they probably didn't believe she was abducted. They probably believed she was a runaway. So therefore, they would not issue the Amber Alert. So at this time, again, the waiting period of a child missing, or a teenager, before a teenager could be considered missing, you had to wait 48 hours. So they had to wait 48 hours. Due to all of this, a bill that was called Skylar's Law was introduced. And the whole point of this bill was to modify the current West Virginia Amber Alert standards. And what they wanted to change was they wanted it to allow for immediate public announcements when a child is missing and in danger. So on March 27th, 2013, the law was unanimously approved. Skylar's Law takes in effect in West Virginia. So now there is no longer a requirement to wait 48 hours. The other thing is the Neese family continues their outreach efforts. They have a thing that they do that's called Skylar Talks. And what this is they go to different schools and prisons. And what they do is they try to help people understand how their actions can cause pain in more than just the victim. So they talk about, sure, you might be hurting the person that you're trying to hurt, but look at the domino effect it has on all the other people that you hurt by these actions that you're doing. They also created a thing called Skylar's Promise. Now, Skylar's Promise is a commitment that they will offer for youth. It kind of reminds me when you were in middle school, you had that one assembly. I think it was about Columbine, actually.
Dumb. Like I've had 18 years of assembly.
No, because it was the only time that they never even did it again. And I was so disappointed, but you guys all were, there was a big piece of paper that you guys were, if you wanted to sign to, agree to whatever it was. I think it was Sarah or something, because I think it was one of the girls from Columbine who was killed, and her parents had this thing. And I think it was one of those see something, say something things. And you had all promised that you would do it. It's kind of the same thing. So basically they offer for people to sign and commit to Skylar's Promise, which is a commitment that you will say something if you believe something is wrong. And I like that because one of the things that bothered me the most in this whole entire story, the whole thing is sucky, but the fact that after the fact, people were interviewed at the school and they were like, well, yeah, like we heard them talking about killing Skylar, but we thought it was just a joke. And that bothers me because I was a high school student once too. And do you want to know what happened in my high school? Because, we had Columbine and shit. I didn't go to Columbine, but I graduated the year that Columbine happened. But prior to Columbine, you want to know what happened in my school? We had like a drive-by shooting, okay, on a kid in my school that almost killed his sister. And I knew all four of the motherfuckers that tried to do it. And I did not hide them. I didn't know where they were. But I definitely wasn't condoning the shit. I was not like, oh, that's such a great plan. Had I known that they were planning on doing something like that, I would have absolutely gone. Even though I was an asshole beyond assholes, I would have absolutely gone and told somebody. Because the person they were going after, they just didn't like him. Dead ass, just didn't fucking like him. And no, they weren't trying to kill him. They were trying to scare him. But because I hung out with some good ass people, they were trying to scare him. So they did a drive-by shooting. What they didn't know is in that moment, his little sister was sleeping in the living room and a bullet literally missed her by inches. They could have killed her. But again, as a student, myself, as a senior in high school, if I would have heard my friends being like, yeah, we're going to go to his house tonight and we're going to get a car and we're going to fucking light the house up, I would have probably called the cops on them or at least told the school and had the school handle it, because I would not want somebody to die. I didn't like the kid they didn't like either, but he didn't do anything that would deserve him to die. So for me, I'm not understanding how you can hear somebody say, I think we should kill her. How do you want to do it? Let's bring her to the woods and stab her to death. And everybody's like, they must be joking. Not one of you thought you should say something. And I, again, as a high school student, I had friends who would have done shit like that. And had I ever heard them make plans like that, I would have put a stop to it or tried to. So that's the thing. That was one of the things that through this whole thing that bothered me almost more than anything else, because it's like, what? So I do, like I said, I love that her parents took something that was so fucking horrific. By the way, this is their only child. She was their only child. So they took probably one of the most horrific things you could ever have happen to you. And they have not only changed the law on reporting, and even the people who voted unanimously to put the law into place have said, and her father said it, would the not waiting 48 hours, would Skylar's law have saved Skylar's life? Probably not. Probably not. Because he already knows she had died that night. 48 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, she was already dead. But he said what he's hoping is that it'll save somebody else's life. So the fact that her dad can take this tragedy and realize that like there's nothing he could do other than try to make somebody else's life better. And then on top of it, to go to schools and prisons and talk to people, to go to middle schools and ask them to do Skylar's promise to be like, listen, if you hear people plotting anything, it doesn't even have to be murder. Like if you hear people saying like, hey, after school, let's go jump so-and-so, go say something. Go. Yes. I know. Snitches get stitches. So I love the fact that they were able to do something like that. Because again, every time I see people who take something horrific like this and turn it into something good, I bow to you, because I really don't know if I could be that person. I actually don't think I could be that person. I think I hold a grudge pretty much for the rest of my life. So I think if somebody were to kill my child, I'm looking right at her. Okay. And if this was a Sierra,
and I'm the oldest, so
she is the oldest.
Special.
She is the oldest, and again, she's a girl, and she went through very similar scenarios. Not at all were her friends plotting on killing her. I don't mean that. What I mean is she went through that really tight knit, close friends that had some problems. And so if I were to ever, if this would have ever happened to where she was injured or murdered by those girls, I don't think those girls would be in jail right now. I think I would have probably...
I think my mom would be in jail for murder.
I think I probably would have been in jail for murder. If not, I might have been good enough to just hide the bodies and get away with it. But I'm telling you, I don't think I could just stand there and be like, I forgive you. Actually, they've never said that. To be fair, they've never said they forgive them. But I don't think I could get past that. I don't think I could. It would take a lot of therapy and a lot of like prayers, because but that's not my personality. My personality is not to forgive. I don't even forget. I'm like an elephant. Wait, isn't it elephants who have like really crazy long memories? Maybe elephants have no memories.
Fucking, I don't know.
There's an animal out there that literally remembers everything. That's me.
How do you know it's a fucking animal? They can't talk.
Listen, there is science that has to do with this shit. Anyways, my point is bravo to the Neese family for being able to take this horrific tragedy and turn it into something that would potentially help people in the future. And I commend you. I bow down to you, because I, as a person who has been through those hard ass teenage years with your daughter and her group of friends, I could never have imagined. And I know based off the shit I read about them, they were even blown away, because I'll say this last part and then we'll cut this off. Sheila, the one who has known her since she was 8 years old, like her best friend, she actually continued to text with the family and put on her social media and stuff how much she misses her and she hopes they find her soon. So she continued to put on an act even though she killed her. Whereas the Rachel girl did not do any of that. She just kind of kept quiet until it ate her to the point where she couldn't handle it, which to me tells me she's got a conscience. To me, the fact that she could not hold it in and had a nervous breakdown tells me that she felt bad. She's guilty. She's guilty about it.
Well, to me, it makes me believe more that she was not the brains of the operation.
I agree. And I do think that she, out of the two,
because most of the time I call bullshit when people try to say that. Like I say, they just say that because they were the first ones to come out and say it, and they're just trying to save their asses.
But no, she went through a straight ordeal. And again, she apologized to the family. So the fact that she came out, apologized, she told on herself, basically, told on the other girl, and basically solved the case for them. But did it because she couldn't deal with it anymore. She got the lesser sentence, but still, she's still in jail. She's been denied parole twice. She has another hearing coming up, and who knows what's going to happen. I know the family doesn't ever want her out. I mean, listen, I probably feel the same way. right? Like, I don't blame the family for not wanting her to get out, but I will say, if you're going to let one of them out, she's the one I'd rather let out. The other one, she's not sorry. She's never said sorry. She doesn't have any guilt about it. So that's a little bit more of a hairy, scary situation there. And then one other person did point out, and I agree with this, and this is the way that I will leave it. This whole entire scenario fucking sucks. Because it's not just the Neese family lost their daughter in a fucking horrific way. But we also have to remember that Rachel's family lost their daughter and Sheila's family lost their daughter because their daughters are in prison. Not that they don't deserve to be there, but people have to remember these are 16-year-old girls who made a fucking terrible decision, and everybody's lives are impacted by this. This whole town was impacted by this because one girl is dead and 2 girls are in prison, and they are literally still there today. So it's not like this is just an easy, like, well, no big deal. The murderers got served. Like, again, there is something to be said for their age. So I'm not justifying it at all. I'm just saying, I actually think that their sentences were pretty appropriate. I think a 20-year sentence or a 30-year sentence with parole and a life sentence with the possibility of parole, I think that those are pretty fair for the crime that was done. So there's that. That's how I feel. So that was the story. Skylar Neese. How do you feel? Did you feel, you didn't seem like you were I didn't think you were going to get emotional or anything, but did you kind of see where I was sitting there being like, God damn, this could have been Sierra.
Oh yeah.
Like I felt like, because Sierra most definitely had some issues with her friends. Not in that scenario, because those girls would have never hurt her. But I'm just saying, I bet you this family didn't think those girls would ever hurt her either. And what really got me was when I was doing the research, the pictures. There are pictures of these girls together, same way that you and your girls would have done it. Pictures of them eating ice cream, pictures of them holding their hands up in hearts, and all the things. I still on my Facebook have pictures of you and one of the girls at a grocery store where I'm, like, so it's like I see these things and I'm like, God, that could have been anybody. And you never would think, you just don't think that that's going to happen because in everybody else's world, you don't know.
Sometimes it's just hard for me to, I know they say, well, your brain's not fully developed and yada, yada, yada. But like, I was also a 16-year-old. I also had problems. And the thing that just always, and it's not just this case, any of the fucking cases that we've done where they're, anybody, it doesn't matter the age, but especially under the age of fully developmental, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I'm sorry. You still fucking know right from wrong. At the end of the day,
you do.
You still know that taking somebody's life on purpose is not okay. Anybody knows that. So in my opinion, the people that do it, or the people that are the brains behind, like, because I also understand if you really were like, not the master manipulator, but you were the side chick, but like, the accomplice. Totally understand, not understand, but I can understand that.
Yeah.
But for the people that are the brains behind their operation, and especially the ones that actually do it, I'm sorry, but when in this case, fine. Her sentencing, fine. However,
I agree.
There have been cases that we've done where it is like, they're not gonna be in life, in for life. Right. And those are the ones that always bother me, because I know people argue with, well, they were 16. I don't fucking care. That that's right from wrong. And I'm sorry, but also because they argue like 12 years old and shit like that too. You still know doing stuff like that is wrong.
So here's
it's just how I feel about it.
So here's the thing here's the clarification I will give you. I agree with you. We all know right from wrong. Shit, you know right from wrong when you're 5.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? However, it's never been about, do you know right from wrong? And I'll just hear me out. It's never been, do you know right from wrong? And it's never been, oh, you're only 13, so you didn't know what you were doing was wrong. That's not the case. The time that the age comes into play, and this is why I don't feel the age applies to this case, is your frontal lobe is the last thing to develop. Well, your frontal lobe is what helps you make emotional decisions, right? So in this case, I can't see that playing a role because they premeditated it. They planned it out. It wasn't a split-minute decision. It is something they planned. Now, the way that this could turn into like, well, it was because she was 16 is had they gone out into the woods and they were hanging out and they got into an argument and then Sheila killed her, that is when you can be like, well, she might have like snapped because her decision-making skills While they're there emotionally, your decision-making skills are different. This is why. So if anybody remembers, we did the story of Krista Pike. She is one of those people that I also will say.
By the way, pretty sure this is the year she's supposed to get executed.
Yes, she is later this year. No, later this year she will be executed.
I was like, did it already happen or no?
Nope, she will be later this year.
That's right.
She is one of the few people that I could care less if she had the death penalty or was just in jail for life. She is one of the people that I would say I do not think she should be allowed out of prison. And the reason I say that is because in the beginning, they try to use her age because she was literally like 14, 15 when she did it. And people are like, but her, her brain. Correct. But again, she premeditated it. She literally lured that girl into the woods to kill her. That was her point. That was her purpose. And then on top of it, she attempted to kill somebody in prison after the fact. So you cannot tell me that it's her brain not being fully developed. There are scenarios, though, of girls or boys who are under the age of 25 who have made split-second decisions. For instance, going into a supermarket or into a 7-Eleven and you pull a gun and you're robbing the 7-Eleven. Obviously, we know it's wrong. The 7-Eleven store clerk looks at you and says, "Get out of my store. I'm not going to give you any money," or potentially pulls a gun back on you and you choose to shoot. Okay. That is when the argument can be made that their age may have had a part in their decision making, because a 25 and older person may not have pulled the trigger as fast. That's literally the difference. So I agree with you. In this scenario, the age, I'm glad they did not take the age into consideration as far as charging her. They charged her as an adult. They charged Sheila as an adult. And I'm glad because she premeditated it. They premeditated it. I think that their sentences are really, honestly, very just. If they get out on parole, that's a whole other thing. Because you think about it, if Rachel gets out on parole this year, she will have only been in jail for
13 years.
Yeah, she'll have been jailed for 13 years for murder. If Sheila gets out in 2028, she would only have been in jail for 15 years. So for me, I'm going, I feel like they could be in jail longer. But if the parole board deems them safe and feels, because a lot of the times parole board, they want you to admit to what you did. They want you to be remorseful. They want you to accept responsibility. They want you to tell you how you've changed, or tell them how you've changed. If they can show all those things, that's part of the law. They get out. That's just the way it is. So I think 15 years is long enough for premeditated murder? No, I don't. But if the probation officers feel that Sheila is ready to be paroled because they feel that she's remorseful and she's done her time, we can't say anything about that because that's just part of her sentence. But at the end of the day, both of them are still in prison now. And it has been, as of now, it has been 13 years. So I can't, they're at least in jail still. I've definitely seen murders get out before that. So it is not a good scenario. It is not a good thing. And it was hard for me to research because I was like, this could be Sierra. This could have been Sierra and her friends, because it really was. So from the bottom of my heart to the Neese family, I genuinely couldn't even understand what you had gone through, I couldn't. And I think the other reason it hit me is because in 2012, Sierra was not 16, but she was in middle school. So she was still very similar to the age group of these girls. And it just hits differently when you can relate to it as a parent. So that's it. I know that you guys like hearing me ramble on. This one was weird. This one was a hard one. I didn't think it was going to be that hard. When I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do this one. And then as I started to read it, I was like, oof, this one's really kind of hit me in the feels. Maybe it's also because I'm in the middle, trying to sell the house, and I'm, our whole life is in a shamble, and Sierra's life is in shambles, and everybody's life is all fucked up. So emotions are running real high over here.
Everybody's leaving me.
For real. I'm trying to get her to get a job out where we want to move to so she can just live with us. But that's a whole nother thing. And so, anyways, thank you very much for listening to us talk to you today. And if you like the things that you hear, if you like listening to Sierra and I talk about all the little things in true crime world and sometimes spookiness, then make sure you're following us. And if you are following us and you think somebody else might like to follow us, share us which is, again, you're blowing my mind because don't tell Dad, but we have more downloads per
Fucking knew it.
We have more downloads per week right now than we do on Fatal Blend.
I fucking knew it.
So, and we're getting a lot. Both podcasts. Both podcasts are getting a lot. I'm not going to lie. We're jumping.
Dad just doesn't have a good enough voice.
So I don't know. Well, I think, it could be just like we just talk about serial killers on Fatal Blend. So if you don't care about serial killers, you're not listening to it. We talk about all kinds of stuff here. So maybe that's it. I don't know. Or maybe they just really like the sound of our voices. I don't know. But regardless, thank you so much. So I have nothing else to say other than one more time. Thank you so much for listening to me tell you the story about Skylar Neese, the 16-year-old whose life was taken far too soon by her two best friends. Until next week, catch you on the flip side, bitches.
Bye, bitches.